Hello and welcome to Dish Shelved with Adam White. Today I'm going to talk about Peacemaker, the DC Finest edition, Peacemaker Kill for Peace, and I'm also going to talk about the newer collection called Peacemaker Tries Hard, which I just have to laugh even thinking about it because it was so good. But this Peacemaker DC Finest, it's one I never thought they'd make, but I was glad they did because it had a lot of really cool stuff in it. The Peacemaker DC Finest Edition, it collects his original appearances in Charlton Comics, the DC bought out later. And so you have his creators Joe Gill and Pat Boyette, and you have you see some of his original appearances back, I think, in the 66 and 67. And it was your pretty standard superhero comic from the 60s. But it did have that interesting thing that he was all for peace, but if things didn't work out, he'd become Peacemaker and basically commit acts of violence to get peace. So, but it was a lot of fun seeing. He had a lot of the same stuff that he did later in the comics in the DC version, and it just was a really cool look into the past of Peacemaker. He had his own comic for 5 issues, and he originally appeared in another comic for like 2 issues. And so there wasn't a whole lot of Peacemaker back in the 60s, but what there was fun. It was a fun comic. Like I said, pretty standard. Well, then you cut to later on and you get to the DC stuff, and he first appears in Vigilante as as the Peacemaker. That's the first time you see him in DC Comics, and this is, I think, after Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was, 1986 through 1993 is what the rest of this collects, which I think was everything that had Peacemaker up until they started doing stuff because of the Suicide Squad movie. Uh, so I think this is probably the only edition that'll be had of this of Peacemaker in DC Finest, because I think it collects everything he was in. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. But right from the beginning in this Vigilante issue, he's just awesome. It's real gritty 80s comics. Um, I like the Vigilante comic anyway. And as you can see, he doesn't have a lot of respect for Vigilante right here on the cover. And but they do an interesting thing with him where he um, um, I was trying to find something with him in it, but um, they do this interesting thing where when he comes back, he has this thing where he thinks he hears the voices of the souls that he's killed in his helmet, and he thinks they're all stored in his helmet. Everybody that he's killed, and he hears their voices, and so he's a little bit on the off the rocker side. And after his appearances in Vigilante for over the course of, like, 10 or 12 issues, but not in all of them, but he makes a couple of appearances in Vigilante. and that's by Paul Kupperberg, who writes an excellent Peacemaker and an excellent Vigilante. I really like Paul Kupperberg, and Todd Smith does the art, and it's really good. I really enjoyed those issues in this. Uh, I mean, they were dark and gritty, and your '80s comic, and it was just a lot of fun. But Peacemaker was a little bit off his rocker. Well, they get him some help at the end of the Vigilante stuff, but then he goes into his own comic for 4 issues, and he let's see here if I can. Well, I was trying to find one of his issues. Yeah, here we go. Peacemaker. #2 there. But when he comes back in his own series, he doesn't hear voices in his helmet anymore, but he hears and sees his dead father, who was a Nazi. And he's always berating him and running him down, and it makes Peacemaker mentally unstable, to say the least. But he keeps that up throughout the rest of his appearances in the stories. And he does that in his own comic Peacemaker, which there's 4 issues of. He ends up in Checkmate and the Suicide Squad, where they have a crossover, which I had read before when I read the Suicide Squad in its entirety, and the Janus Directive. That's all in here, and he just those are awesome issues. I love the Suicide Squad, the original. Uh, it was a fantastic comic, and having him appear in those was great. And then after that, he appears in a lot of Checkmate, and they just collect the stuff that deals with him, so you're not getting the full issue of every issue that doesn't have anything to do with Peacemaker. So you're really just getting full Peacemaker in this, which is great. I'm glad they did that, because you'd be left hanging with other stuff. Here's him with his father riding along with him up here, and he just, because his father was a Nazi who killed himself, and he watched him kill himself, Peacemaker did, as a kid. And so now he's got this hallucination that talks to him constantly and berates him. But this was, it has a lot of Checkmate, and then it ends with a few issues of Eclipso, which he's really barely in, but I guess they were just going for everything he was in, because like I said, I think this is everything. There was a Showcase 93 that ran, that was like a each issue had like 4 stories in it, and he was one of them in Showcase 93. And he has a couple of great guest stars, which I won't give away, but they're 2 of my favorite other DC characters. And it was a lot of fun. It was a really good run in Showcase 93. And then they had those Eclipsos, which he was barely in, but it was fun just seeing him. But the Eclipsos weren't great, but if you're collecting everything he's in, you might as well have him in there. So really good DC finest. I'm glad they decided to do it. It's obvious because of the success they had with John Cena playing Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad movie, which I wholly recommend if you're, over 17. Uh, and the Peacemaker Max series on HBO Max, which was just hysterical. Um, but it presents a really different Peacemaker than what you see in here. But I really enjoyed this Peacemaker, and you really got to see his evolution as a character over the whole course of this DC Finest. So if you're looking at the DC Finest stuff and you're thinking, now I'm kind of on the fence of a few of them, Peacemaker would probably be one of those. But I really recommend it because it was a lot of fun. A lot of good stuff in here, and like I said, it was kind of a gritty comic. It's not mature readers, but it would help if you were a little bit of at least a teen reader or older, because it just has, the dramatic situations and stuff in it is just, you wouldn't want to give a kid this because they wouldn't understand it. But it's good stuff. I also read after that. Uh, I found that they had done uh, Peacemaker Tries Hard, which sorry, I'm trying to get it. Which I don't know if you can see it on the phone here. You can see it a little bit. It's kind of blurry, but it's Peacemaker Tries Hard, and this was a newer one from a year or two ago. And it was by Kyle Starks and Steve Pugh. And it deals more with the Peacemaker like you see in the movie and the show, which, they've done so many revamps of other characters that it didn't surprise me that they did that with him, because it was, the show and the movie were successful. So, and they're making a second season of Peacemaker, and John Cena made him really popular. So, and he was great as Peacemaker. I mean, I really enjoyed that. So this one was funnier. It had it had a lot of funny stuff in it. I mean, I laughed till I had tears in my eyes a couple of times in Peacemaker Tries Hard. But it's just a story about he um, is taking out these terrorists, and he finds a stray dog who he takes on as his friend, and then the dog gets kidnapped, and that's the main plot of the story. But there's a lot more to it than that. But it's sort of violent, but not real violent. It is a DC Black Label, which they stupidly use instead of Vertigo anymore. But so it is mature readers, mainly because of the language. So I wouldn't give that to, a kid to read. But it it's really funny, and it's got a lot of heart too, which it there's some really poignant parts in it, and it deals with issues like friendship and trust and things like that. But it really does have a lot of heart, and and like I said, it's definitely the Peacemaker from the movie and the show. And I'm glad, because I really enjoyed those. So if you enjoyed those movies, the movie or the shows, definitely check out Peacemaker Tries Hard because it's really, really good. I really enjoy it's a comic I've most enjoyed of a lot of them I've read lately. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a 6-issue series that is collected. You can get. I read it on. I'm not showing it to you because I read it on my Kindle, on my iPad app. I got it digitally, but you can still get it print copy or digital, and I would highly, highly recommend it if long as you're, meet that mature reader age. You know, it'll be okay for teens. It's just language. It's nothing they haven't heard at school. So, and there's not a ton of it, but it just, it's got some really funny parts in it. I mean, it is just, it's, and I won't tell you what he names his dog either because it ends up in a funny situation later because of what he named him. But it has guest appearances from the Suicide Squad and uh, some some other DC heroes and villains. He fights mainly the Brain and Monsieur Mala, the French super intelligent gorilla, which is just perfect for someone to have in this comic uh, as villains. So anyway, I've taken up enough of your time. Peacemaker Tries Hard and Peacemaker Kill for Peace, the DC Finest Edition. Check these books out. You won't be disappointed. I really enjoyed them, and I think you will too. So, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you again hopefully sooner than later.